Okay, kia ora everyone. Welcome to this seminar today. My name is Arif Ali and I am your facilitator for today. And you must have gone through the topic. So before we start introducing the topic and for today and questions, so let me start this session with a karakia. Mate whakato ka mohio, mate mohio ka marama, mate marama ka mathua, mate mathua ka ora. It translates, with discussion comes knowledge, with knowledge comes light and understanding, with light and understanding comes wisdom, with wisdom comes wellness. Thank you so much everyone, and welcome everyone to this seminar from wherever you're joining. I have amazing panelists today, 3 people, so we will go to their introduction. But before that, so the topic for today, just to repeat, is Beyond Consultation, Unpacking the Important Elements of Refugee Meaningful Participation and Partnership in this research field. And also just to let you know that there are Q&A tabs at the bottom of this screen if you would like to ask any questions from the panelists. So please do use that Q&A tab at the bottom. Yeah, and I will start introducing myself and then I will request the panelists to introduce themselves. As you can see on the screen, my name is Arif Ali and I work as a Center Manager for English Language Partners, HUT and Porirua, and working with former refugees and migrants in this offering education while helping them with the resettlement here in New Zealand. I've done a PhD from Victoria University and I have been doing some teaching at Welltech and at a Polytechnic and Victoria University before. Originally from Pakistan and Afghanistan, and living in Lower Hutt. Thank you so much. And I would like to go to Hafsa to please introduce herself, and then Daniel and Martin.
Good morning, everyone. Even if I said it's good morning, I'm sure it will be good afternoon in New Zealand. So yes, my name is Hafsa and I am originally from Myanmar and I live in Wellington, New Zealand now, and I work for Asia Pacific Refugee Rights Network as a co-secretary general of the network, and very, very pleased to be here with all of you.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Yep. Kia ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko Monserrate te maunga, ko rongo mai te marae, ko wait karangi te awa, no Colombia o ko ti puna, ko Daniel toko ingoa. Kia ora and welcome everyone. My name is Daniel Gamboa. I'm very excited to be here with you today. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's great to see so many of you joining us today. I know we're in a webinar, but we can see the names of everyone who's joining, and it's good to see a good number of people joining us today, especially because it's such an important topic, refugee meaningful participation, and we're really excited to go a bit deeper into the topic and how we can all work together to have meaningful partnerships with our refugee communities. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the New Zealand National Refugee Youth Council, an NGO by refugee youth for refugee youth. We engage, advocate, and empower newly arrived refugee youth to have a meaningful and successful life in Aotearoa. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. So I'll pass it to my fellow panelist, Martin.
Thank you, Daniel, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martin Utahemuka. I am originally from Rwanda, but have been living in New Zealand for almost 30 years now. I came there as a refugee and was resettled in Palmerston North. That to say that I have seen a lot of changes for refugees in New Zealand across that period of time. And I'm really looking forward to speaking to my fellow panelists about research, how meaningful participation and partnership has changed for the good and for the better for the communities. I'm a public policy professional, but I'm actually on a break at the moment. So I'm really looking forward to having this discussion with you all.
Kia ora, Martin. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Hafsa, for the introduction. For the audience, just to let you know, the run for today, I have 3 questions, just simple questions. I will ask the panelists about their experience and then challenges and some solutions. And toward the end, we will make sure that we have enough time, at least 15 minutes, so that you can ask questions. So I will go to my first question and will ask Daniel, as a youth worker in community with his role as working with the community as a community engagement person. Daniel, could you please share your experiences, your own as well as any experiences that communities they have shared with you participating in research projects, be that very good experiences or not so good experiences? Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, thank you. Well, let's start talking about research. Research is such a powerful tool and that can help us gather evidence and statistics of the issues and solutions of the many problems our refugee youth face. So research is awesome. Research is not an issue. But to be able to have good research, we need to ensure that the voices of refugee youth are heard, their perspectives are valued, and their experiences are properly presented. So something that our young people usually tell us is that when they join a research, they feel like study objects rather than people. So researchers come, observe the young people, they gain their insights, they ask questions, and they disappear. They leave. And so we have seen this many times. And researchers don't bring with them a proper engagement plan. Our young people want to see how they can actually participate, how can they be active participants of research, and they also want to determine how they want to be engaged. So it's not a one-off. And speaking about this, typically, we have seen a lot of times of researchers not thinking they know the issues that the community face. So then they go and start a research, and then later they struggle to find participants. For example, we get inundated with requests from researchers for refugee youth participants, and all the time I get many emails. But you know what I hardly get? I hardly get any co-design request approach. We hardly get asked, hey, what are the issues you face? How can we help you research this? What should we be researching? Researchers tend to assume what the issues our young people faced, and they think their research is going to make the most change without asking us. Our refugee youth have very diverse perspectives and experiences as well. And so when you're gathering data and collecting research from our young people, engaging with our young people, make sure you also think of outside the box. I have seen many times that researcher comes into the room, has a recording device, and start asking questions. This is sometimes not accessible for many of our young people because of their learning disabilities or the language barriers. So think outside the box. Maybe focus groups, storytelling, art-based activities. And please, anything you do, also honor the time and acknowledge the young people, either with money or in-kind support. There are many ways you can partner meaningful with our young people, and we see so many issues out there. And once again, research is great, but it's how we do it and how we engage with our communities.
Cool. Thank you, Daniel. I would love to share my own experiences as well and just recap that, but for the sake of saving time, let's go to the next panelist, and then I will come back to that. Martin, so you have worked in the policy area and then your research work as well. So what would you like to share your own experience as well as experiences of communities in this research projects?
Sure. I think I'll just start by supporting what my fellow panelist, Daniel has said. So research is really important. It's important because it provides the opportunity opportunity to collect a body of knowledge about something that's really important, as important as refugee resettlement in New Zealand or in a new country. So really important. But I think what I've noticed in my journey as a researcher, so I've done research for refugee communities, with refugee communities. What I've noticed is when we approach the communities, they always ask us, what's in it for us, right? So we're always going in as academics and we're saying, we want to research XYZ. And then they say, but you always research this, you never come back to us and say, this is what we found and this is how it's going to benefit you. So while as academics, you want to develop a body of knowledge, it's also good for you for publishing as an author and all of that kind of stuff, which benefits the researchers. It's not very clear for the participants what's in it for them. So we actually face a lot of, I guess, reservation from communities to participate because and I'm saying it myself as well, we very hardly go back to communities. Once we've engaged with them, we've collected information from them, we very, very rarely go back and speak to them and say, this is what we found and this is how it's going to help you. Sometimes we do say, if you would like the summary of the findings, we can give them to you upon request. So again, it's actually putting the onus on the communities again to come back to us and say, yes, we do want a summary of the findings. But I think that's not enough. I think we do have to go a little bit further and say research is important, but for what? To what end? I think we need to be speaking a little bit more about that. And I really, really appreciate community research for having this conversation, actually, because it's actually showing that people are interested. The fact that we've got 70 people at the moment online wanting to unpack what meaningful participation and partnership looks like is really, really positive. And it's different to when we first came here, we just used to have people coming in and saying, you come and participate in this research, and we were new, we didn't speak the language, we were used to I guess environments where when you are told something by somebody who funds you, helps you settle in a new country and comes and tells you participate in this research, you kind of just participate because you think you have to do it. Now it's different. People are being asked, would you like to participate? But again, it's when do you bring people in? Do you bring them in at the time of actually deciding whether the question is right? Like Daniel was saying, do you first decide what the question is and then ask for participants, or do you actually talk to communities and say, what is it? What would be important for us to learn more about your community so that we can do X, Y, Z? So it's about when you bring in the communities as well. That's really important. It's changing a little bit. So I have had good experience with a particular university that's been engaging with me as a researcher. So I've actually been working alongside, I guess, expert researchers at universities, but providing that lived experience as a researcher who has a lived experience as a refugee as well. That's important. But also I think sometimes it's a tokenism as well. It's actually just saying, we have a refugee as an author as well, because at times I come in quite late. I don't come in at the time of actually understanding what the inquiry is, why it's there, and what we're going to do about it. So I think there's positive movement in that space, but I think we need to go a little bit further.
Okay, Kia ora, Martin, thank you. Hafsa, you're engaged locally as well as at the international level. So what would you share with our audience today?
I think I don't have much to share about what research is and the kind of impact that research can bring, but I do want to tell you that when people do conduct research, they have the idea of, I need to do this in such and such research because I need to get my doctoral, I need to get my master's degree. So I also have to tell you that on top of being whatever I introduce myself as, I'm an activist, I'm a social worker. So in the social work degree, we have this in Maori language, it's called he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It's about the people, and the people. What always pisses me off is that when the researchers go to the community and view the community and the people as the subject to study, and I said, come on, the people are more than the subject. Please treat them with the respect that they deserve with. And they are not just something for you to study, so you get your master's, doctoral degree. So I think it starts from that as well. And also, I have seen many researches that have been conducted and put in archive, the research that doesn't make anything. So to me, it's such a waste of time and energy. But if we do it the right way, with the right approach, the research also had the power, the authority, and the platform to bring a lot of positive changes for many people, many communities. So just to be mindful of that, trying to see this as something that could bring impact for the people and the community that we work with. They are not the subject. They are not the data for you to simply go and study and then done. And you have got what you need and then done. So we have to start changing that. As well, if I may, I think we're also touching on that at some point as well. Always being mindful of, I've said it many times at the National Refugee Resettlement Forum, our position and our power and the privileges that we hold as the researcher. When you go into the community, how you position yourself, the privilege that you have as the professor, as whatever title that you hold in. So when you're sitting with the community, are you being mindful of your position and your power? Are you decentralizing that? Are you going there with that power? Then the community already have that mentality, is that, oh, this great person coming in, and I have to say yes, even if I don't understand what's in it for me, as the way Martin have described, even if they may not be treating me with the level of respect that I deserve to. So it's really important to also think from that kind of scenario. But I just want to echo what Martin and Daniel have said. If we do it the right way, if we're going to produce the kind of research that can actually be the platform and be the kind of pressure that we can put on the policymakers to create changes, it is very important thing to do. But we have to be willing to learn and unlearn a lot of things to conduct the impactful researches. Over.
Okay, thank you, Hafsa. Yeah, lots of learning here. What I see is coming back to what Daniel was saying, and then echoed by Martin and Hafsa. I guess what we have to understand is that this is with the community, with people from refugee background community that we are engaging with. So we have to be mindful of their background as well, and have some of the put more effort to make either the finding or research questions or the whole process more of a personalized approach, so that it just is according to what their backgrounds are. Perhaps they must have gone through interviews with immigration before, must have gone through lots of trauma, and then again going through the interview. So perhaps they might think, am I going to be interviewed again? So perhaps they will be just quite scared of this when they hear about the interview. So those kind of things, sensitivities, cultural sensitivities, as well as their background sensitivities, we need to be aware of those. And then obviously sharing some of the findings and then the benefits, what these research are going to benefit to people from refugee background. On one hand, we see they are quite approached by different researchers and organizations to research either it's their health or well-being or any topic. On the other hand, we see lots of data missing on refugee background communities. The statistics, New Zealand, perhaps, for example, no data how many people are from refugee background, how much, I mean, I'm not aware, there could be something on their employment, how much they have got, what their contribution, health issues, and all those kind of things, more of a broader countrywide rather than just on a smaller scale. So on one hand, there are gaps that people, for example, if I say as a representative of a community, I would love to have some of the more of those data which can be more beneficial and meaningful for people. On the other hand, just research for the sake of research that just puts people off from this actual field, and that's for any future researchers that makes it challenging. Going to the next question. So we talked about, so we briefly mentioned about some of the challenges here, what yourself have seen and communities they have seen. Hafsa, I will come back to you now. I'm coming to you now. What do you think about meaningful, how do you perceive, and communities they perceive meaningful partnership and participation? How does it look like to you?
Thank you. Yes, so I have to again start being the critical friend of New Zealanders. because
Welcome.
That is also a home of my home, and I want my home to improve. So I think we need to also start to look at, again, the positioning of us and the decolonization, the idea of the decolonization, superiority and inferiority, as well, always perceiving refugees as the people who receive, who cannot reciprocate anything and vulnerable, and then always expecting us to be grateful for everything that we have. And then we have been put through in so many different levels of discrimination and struggle in life. We've become so numb in a system is that many refugees feel, even if they feel it is unfair to them, it is not right for them. The struggle to speak up, people cannot speak up, and it's just so angry in it. So it is the job of the people who are in the position of power to really think about critically, what does it look like for them, the meaningful participation? Is it only having them in our discussion where we will not even properly give them the space to speak? Because we have a lot of knowledge, we have a lot of skills, we have a lot of privileges. I understand you from the study and degree such and such that I did, and I know better because I am superior. I come from such and such knowledge. So let me tell you what is best for you, and you be at the table because I want to practice meaningful participation. So that is absolutely not meaningful. It is, again, re-traumatizing the refugee communities. Again, you are doing the same thing that they have been through in their country, in different phases of their life, and then again here. And then you also want us to be really grateful because we are invited, because we get to be on the table. So it is absolutely not the meaningful participation. The most important element of the meaningful participation is that giving the people a sense of ownership. If it is about us, do we then make the people feel that they own this space? And do we then make the people safe to speak up, even if it is something very critical, and challenge the people? Oftentimes, when I am in different spaces of advocacy spaces, and if I ask the question to somebody who holds a lot of power, they are immediately in the defensive position. They said, you are not being grateful. We have done such and such, A, B, C, D. And I said, no, it is not my intention of being critical for you. My intention is that we could do a lot better than what you are doing. The fact that we are still dealing with the same bullshit that we do for 20 years ago, it says something. If we had been doing it rightfully in the right way, we might have seen some movement from 20 years ago. We might have seen some positive things happening now. 15 years ago, why are we still dealing with the same problem, with the same challenges, with the same barrier now again? It means we really need to critically think about our approaches to the community. How do we work with them meaningfully, and how do we include them, make them feel they own this space? This is your space. Because if somebody asks me and come and tell me, Hafsa, do you want to do a recite about Maori? I will feel absolutely uncomfortable. Not because I don't believe in my skills that I have been trying to do that, simply being mindful that it is not my space. And I would, if I have no choice, but I must do that research, I would definitely go to the Maori community and seek their guidance. How do I approach respectfully? How do I go about it so that they are meaningfully consulted and included, and then they feel they own this. This is their space. I am only there to facilitate, and I'm only contributing what I have to contribute as a part of the society, as one of their friends, their community, somebody allies from their community. But I am not the person who can tell what is best for Maori community, because I'm not one of them. The only thing that I have is the tools that I can use to facilitate what is best for them, based on the best interest of the community. So I think also, even for the other global spaces, people always feel like, well, we have never done that meaningful participation of the people. If we do for the first time, if we do have a couple of people on the table, yes, we have done so much. We're perfect. We don't have to do anything more. I said, no, this is the tip of the iceberg. You just have started the baby step. For the first time in the history, you started to think about including the community, but then you have to do a lot, because you have been so normalized in a system of sitting in the position of power, and you feel so threatened to share that power, to share that authority with the very own people that you are working for and working with. So a lot of things have to come from the space of humility and reflection, and acknowledging that, okay, I do hold this power, but it is not about me. The space that I'm in is their space. And I have to be always mindful and share that power. You don't have to give it up, because now if you talk about getting the people we live in the spaces, some, not all of them, maybe more, most of them feel threatened. Now, if the people with lived experience gonna come to this space, where would I be? Do I now compromise my position? Do I now compromise my such and such great things that I have in life? No, no, you don't have to compromise. The only thing that we request is that know your space and let the people be where they need to be, rightfully so. This is their space. Make them own their space. You have a lot of toolbox, you have a lot of skills. Use it to support them, to get the best, to get something that is really meaningful and impactful, again, based on the best interests of the people. So we are in New Zealand. So we're going to say, always remind ourselves again, hey tangata, hey tangata, hey tangata. Please do that every morning when you make coffee. Do that. Otherwise, maybe we need to think about this may as well not be us, our profession. We may as well have to change our profession. You work with the machine and with the computer if you don't know how to work with the people. If you do work with the people, you have to always learn how to work with the people. Over.
Okay, thank you, Hafsa. I loved it. So I will struggle to summarize. I won't summarize. I won't dare to do that. Okay, so I will ask the same question to Daniel. So would you like to share how do you perceive meaningful participation and partnership in this research field?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, and thank you, Hafsa, for those great examples. Before the panel today, I went to my young leaders and we were talking about this, and I was asking if there were 3 things that you would like me to convey to this webinar, to the researchers, what would it be? And they talk about 3 things. They talk about long-term engagement. So for them to be able to meaningfully participate, they want to engage with you, researcher, even before the research idea comes on your mind, to the end, to the product, to the final outcome. So they want a long-term engagement plan from you. They want constant communication and feedback. They want to know how their voices are actually making a difference. How are you using their voices? So they are really keen to engage not only a one-off, but also in later stages, helping you design that research, for them understanding how you incorporated their voices, how are their voices being represented in your research, and how they're making a difference to the wider community. And also they talked about advocacy and how you use that research to advocate for them. In many cases, young people give up their time, their voices, their energy, and that piece of research just sits on a document in a bookshelf, and it looks beautiful, but it doesn't go beyond that. So they want to know how you're using their words to advocate for them, for policy change, for meaningful participation. And then I also got a couple of examples. A couple of months ago, I got an email from Dr. Malihi, who is on this call from Auckland University. And I was quite doubtful, you know, we are an NGO, under-resourced, and we have hundreds of people asking us for youth participants. So I take my time answering to emails. But when I did go to Dr. Malihi's email, she was asking how their research could help us. What would we want her to do research on? So this was a very different approach. She was asking us what we needed. And as NGO, we do need a lot of research because we need to show funders, hey, these are the issues our young people face. And we can say that because our young people tell us, but funders, government departments do like numbers. So by Dr. Malihi coming to us, asking us, saying, hey, we're keen to partner with you. Do you tell us what research you need? And we will do the research. That was such a fresh change, you know, and our young people who talked to Dr. Malihi really felt heard and felt like they could contribute to a wider systematic change by giving their voices to that research. So that was a really good example. Then I also got a couple more, and there's some master's students at Victoria University, and they wanted to research something to do with us. And I said, look, our young people don't have any time. if you want to talk to them, you should volunteer for our programs. And they did found the time. They volunteer for drama, theater, workshop. And then they gained so much out of that because they shared a space with the young people. They got to know them really well, and they were there with them and for them. And friendships develop way beyond that research. And also, I have a PhD student who worked really closely with our community, and she volunteered her time as a translator. She couldn't pay the participants financial money, aid, but she did volunteer her time, supporting them to connect with other service providers, and went beyond and above that research to make sure the people had all resources to participate. So yeah, remember, long-term engagement, communication, feedback, and advocacy. Thanks.
Oh, I love those examples. Really, really nice examples. Thank you, Daniel. I'll go to Martin now. Martin, what would you like to share?
Thank you, Daniel and Hafsa. As I said, I'm always learning so much from you and really appreciate your insights. I just wanted to pick up on Hafsa's point about knowing your space. I think it's so important in this research space that, and I recently heard someone talking about the power dynamics. So there is the power that you know you hold, but there's also the power that the people you are researching know that you hold, but you don't know that they perceive that power within you. So you have to actually be taking stock all the time and saying, okay, how are these people perceiving me? So I know my power as a researcher, for example. I have the tools, I understand the system in New Zealand. But when I go into the communities, what power do they place on me, on my shoulders? And understanding that is really, really important. Because if you don't understand your power fully, you can be a liability. You can actually cause more harm as well. Because as I said earlier, if you go into a community that's new in New Zealand, they have a history of always being told what to do. If you go in there and ask them to participate, they will participate, but in the end, you're actually doing more harm to them because you are re-traumatizing them by asking them questions that they've been asked over and over and over. But they don't believe they have the power to say no. They have the power to say, go away, you've actually come to us before, and there's a lot of research in this space. So it's actually just being very, very transparent about what you know as your power and asking them what do they think could create some harmful maybe consequences by you going into in that space. So having that conversation, I think meaningful partnership and participation is also, so I guess on a spectrum. So it depends on when the people come into that research. So in my I guess in my understanding, partnership is when we are doing our own research for ourselves. So we are owning the space, it's our space. And we can invite people in, like Hafsa, who was talking about the people who have the tools to do research in New Zealand, who have the funding, and we invite them into that space. That's, I think, the extreme end of partnership. So we're actually asking the people to come in and partner with us as we do research for our communities. I think that's an ideal nirvana kind of thing. And then you've got participation, which is, you know, like what Daniel is talking about, people emailing and saying, hey, we need some youth, we need to do this, can you please give us some youth? And I spoke to somebody else who works for an organization that works with refugees, and they told me that they're overwhelmed with requests from people saying, can you please get us in touch with communities? People are overwhelmed with these requests. That's the other end of participation. We just want you to give us participants. And I think where we need to get is somewhere in the middle. And I think what could help with that is being transparent. So it's important. I have a master's. I needed to do a research for me to get my master's. And because I'm really interested in the refugee space, I did research with refugee communities. But what's important is actually going in and saying, I'm doing this research purely for my master's. Are you willing to support me to achieve my goal? I think being transparent is so important. I think it's quite wrong to go into something and promising the world and saying, I'm doing this and it's going to help you and it's going to help your community. And look, I'm looking at employment issues for you. I never did anything with my master's apart from just submitting it so I can get my master's. And so I think it's actually being very transparent and saying, if you're a government agency or a community research organization wanting to do research, saying, we need to do this so that we can get funding, like Daniel said, because without the numbers, without the statistics, it's really hard for us to get funding so that we can support the community. So being very clear about what's in it for them, what's in it for me. Sometimes there is nothing tangible in it for the communities. And I think it's being very clear so that people can decide whether they want to participate or not. And you can't decide if you don't have the right information and the correct information as well. So providing the information, being transparent, and actually, I think being realistic that meaningful partnership it's a long-term fight. We can get there, but we're not there yet. We just need to move towards meaningful partnership, but we need to do better with participation as it stands, actually. And what's going to help us, I think, it's that transparency, just being very honest about what do we want from it and why are we doing it, what for. I think something else that I've seen over the years is that, for example, there's a lot of research on employment issues. Oh my goodness, like so much research. Oh, what's the employment barriers for this? Just today I saw a request for participants to do with experiences of discrimination and racism in New Zealand. And I felt so bad about it. I just thought, oh my goodness, how much more research are we going to do in New Zealand to show that there's discrimination and racism? What I think could be better is actually collecting that information that's been collected over the years and saying, here is what's come up over the years, and then saying, so what? We want to actually now figure out what are the next steps, not again asking people what the barriers. We know what the barriers are. We know what barriers are for employment. We know that there's racism. We know there's discrimination. All we're doing at the moment is actually re-traumatizing people. I think we need to do better.
Kia ora, Martin. Thank you. Okay, so moving to, I was going to share just one sentence. I should share that sentence. I love this IAP2 framework. I know that the spectrum, I know that government agencies, they use it, but I love how it goes from one side to the other. If I had to summarize this corridor, just informing people, on the other hand, it's involving them, collaborating with them, empowering them. So that's what we should be going towards, IAP2. I love that framework. Last question, just briefly, benefits of these. If they, for example, if you have to influence these researchers, what would be some of the benefits if they take these suggestions on board? Martin, briefly, if you can mention.
Sure, I think it's just a continuation of what I was saying. It's if we do better, we do better for the people, so we're not harming people, we're not re-traumatizing them. But also you are very clear, you have a clear conscience, right? If you've told somebody, I'm only doing this for this reason, and then that person actually decides to participate, you would have a clear conscience as well. You're not actually making it out to be much bigger than it is, or that you're going to help people and support people. So I think it benefits you as a researcher, as a person who's going into the communities, but it also, more importantly, benefits the communities, that they're not being hurt. You're not a liability to the communities.
Thank you. Daniel, what would you say to the research community, the benefits for them?
Well, I think it's a great step for all of you to be here today, and all of you are taking the time to listen to us and with open heads and try to make some changes. So please don't, we don't want this to, we don't want for you to go away and say, it's too hard to deal with this refugees. I'll better off researching someone else, you know, because research is so powerful and we do need research. So do not be afraid of engaging with us, you know. So learn everything, take everything you learned today into practice. You will have better research quality, you have richer and deeper insights, and there's so much knowledge in the refugee community as well. We're so knowledgeable, we're beyond an object to study. So I think if you get to listen to us, you will be really surprised by everything we can bring, all the knowledge we can bring. So I'll leave you with that homework to be active listeners and go.
Kia ora, Daniel. Kia ora. Thank you. Hafsa.
Right. Before I talk about the benefit, I also want to mention about the diversity and equity and inclusion in the research space, because sometimes there was such a struggle with the time frame, and then they were like, okay, if we're speaking to this community, as long as I have 5, that's done. So I've reached my goal. I really, really encourage the people, please do not speak to the same 5 people that you speak all the time. And then do not, without looking beyond. Then because the researcher holds such power, the policymaker, whoever it is, when they receive the research, they only know the person who conducted the research. They don't have direct access to the community. And then they then have that gap of what is it that the community really want. And they only have access to what the researcher presents. So I really, really encourage to think the diversity, inclusion, and equity when you do the research. Please go beyond. Even if it's require you a bit of more work, please do so. Only then you will produce the kind of research that will really inform the policy makers and all of that and bring the impact, not the research that you will keep in archive. Such a waste of time and energy. Please do that. I also see the benefit of that is that sometimes the researcher said, I cannot do this and this because my university is not allowing me to do that, because my policy is not allowing me to do that. I will encourage you to advocate if you can be flexible a little bit, because one time I remember I was talking about, can you please mention another person who has done this research with you as the co-author, and acknowledge them. So, oh, we cannot acknowledge the people. We cannot acknowledge the community member who participated and contributed in the research because it is risky. It is to protect them. And I said, what if the people who you spoke to are willing to be acknowledged, willing to be expressed in your acknowledgement? Can you please do so? They're still reluctant. So I think it is something very simple that you can make the people feel that they own this. You are not the only person who produced this research. Even if you have all the skills, they all played a role. They all contributed it. And they need to feel that ownership. I have done something. I have made an impact for my community. So that is very good things. And to make the people feel that, acknowledge that. As well, one other thing is that I have also seen, I have to share you this. Even people have, their consent form, all blah, 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 and they do that. And then when they go deeper, the researcher, they wear their researcher hat, and they realize and they see at some point the people who are talking to are traumatized, and they don't stop. Yes, can you please go a little bit more? It's so not acceptable. It is not okay. Please stop doing that. You are doing more harm than any good at all. Please do not do that. And in terms of partnership, it is not one thing. It is ongoing work. Please be willing to work with us. We are not a threat to you. If you do work with us, we will only do something better. The very simple thing in New Zealand, when we read, again, I have to say this, when we read a lot of research, the refugee communities are mentioned under Maori, Pacific, and other. What does it mean? It's other can be everything. Other can be a migrant, other can be economic, whatever reason. Refugees is a different thing, unique with the unique needs and all of that. So we need to also look at what kind of laws it's going to cost you if you then precisely mention we have such and such refugee community, and with a diverse need, because of this, we need this for them. Can you please make us seen and heard in this space instead of calling us other? What is that other? What are we? So please work on that as well. We really need to be seen and heard, because I was joining a webinar about child protection things with this Orangata Mariki. They talk about Mokapunu, Pacifica, Maori. I am very humble, and I acknowledge that their community struggle a lot. But I also want to acknowledge that there are many refugee children who committed suicide, who experienced bullying, racism, and all of that. These refugee community children need to be seen very significantly as the way other communities are seen. We are not only other, we are something. We are a part of your society and community. We reside in your country. And one last thing, if I can tell you, is that it may not as well be only for research, for many other things. So when they see the refugee people do not speak English and blah, 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 they don't have skills. So I dare you, if you have been through what we have been through, if you are in this country as the small amount period of time as we are, I dare you, I do not think you will be able to do what we do. And I have a huge amount of respect for those refugees who have been through shit in their life and so many traumatizing experience. Yet, when they come to New Zealand, they learn English, they learn Turio, they learn all these skills. If I were in the position of having all this privilege and power, I would be so humble and to work with them, to seek their guidance, because look at these beautiful people, human, even if they have been through so much in life, how quickly they adapt in the new environment and integrate, and they contribute, they live. And so we also need to think about all of the, please do not see us as the people who are always needing to be saved, rescued, and incapable people. We are so capable. And we are so capable of being your partner. And every time you work with us, please see us as your partner. We are not claiming to be your superior. And please also do not see us as your inferior either. We are part of your society. We exist. New Zealand has been resettling refugees for more than 70 years. We are there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hafsa. Yeah, so those were the 3 questions that we had planned. I have few questions in the chat, in the Q&As, so I would like the panelists to have a look at those questions. And then if you would like to choose and answer any of the questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just go by order. So the first question is wanting to know from the panelists to share some particular stories from their experience where meaningful partnership and participation was done right, leading to positive outcomes, and reflect on why that was. Anyone would like to answer this? Martin, please.
Thank you. Yeah, very good question. And I think it's good because it reminds us that there are some positive stories. So because we only had an hour, you kind of tend to focus on the things that need to change, but actually there's a lot of good things that are happening. I think an experience that I've had where there has been meaningful participation, I'm not sure if there's been meaningful partnership just yet, is with, I probably don't want to name the research, but it's with a particular research that's been done. It started in 2013, I believe. And I saw the researchers going into the communities and asking them, we understand there are problems. It's to do with asylum seekers. We understand there are problems with asylum seekers in New Zealand. What is it? Do you want us to do some more research so that we can support you to talk to governments to get more support for you? If so, what are the questions that you want us to actually look into? What are the things that you want us to look into? So people were approached because there was an understanding that there was problems in the asylum seeker space, but the questions weren't actually already defined. They went to the communities and they said, do you want us to look into this further? And therefore, if so, what do you want us to ask? So right from the start, I think the people were part of the inquiry, the questions. And what I've seen over the years with that same particular research, they keep updating their research with new information, but I've seen the same researchers going to government and advocating really openly, really fully, and saying, look at this, we've been looking at this over the years, nothing is changing, do something. So I think it's important because it goes from the research, this is what's happening, to then what, because the asylum seeker, so actually, like Hafsa was saying, the refugee experience is really important and we shouldn't be called an other. But within the refugee experience, there's also another group of people. There are even more invisible. So the asylum seekers, and oh my goodness, they are struggling. They are struggling because people don't talk about them enough. They're not visible. We are talking about them every now and then, more often now, but they need a lot more support. So I was really happy because somebody actually thought, okay, there's a lot of research in the refugee space, but nobody's talking about asylum seekers. But they worked with the asylum seeker community right from the start, and they kept going to the advocacy bit. It's not, oh, look, they don't have support, but they've been fighting with government and saying, do something, do something. So I found it really positive.
Nice, thank you, Martin. Hafsa and Daniel, feel free to raise your hand, any of the questions you're wanting to answer. Next question I have is one participant has asked, I sometimes struggle to know how much information to offer when looking for participants. If you start with a totally blank co-design slate, it's tricky to engage people. What is a useful set of information to include without steering the research questions too much? Daniel?
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for your question. I think that's really important. So it looks like the question you are asked, you already have a research idea and you don't want for that to change too much. Ideally will come in an earlier stage as well. But if you already have the question, I think it's important to think outside the box once again and not just realize that a paper of information is going to do it. With our communities, you need to go a little bit beyond that into more of a relationship and understanding what information they need. So what I would suggest you have in that package of information is what this is about, the actual outcomes, how much time the person needs to be involved in the research, the participant needs to be involved, and how their voices are going to shape this research, and what's the outcome after the research. As Martine was saying, you know, be a very open communicator, acknowledging that if this is only for a master's degree and it's not going to benefit the community, it's okay. Just let them know. Also, I think it's really important, especially for young people, to know what they're getting out of this research. Being exact, are you offering a koha? Are you offering free something? Are you offering your time? So I think those are really key things. So I would like to see a clear picture, obviously very in a summary way, but a clear picture that takes you all from the beginning to the end and beyond the research.
Okay. Here, Daniel. Hafsa.
Oh, I just want to quickly mention that I don't expect people to know everything. It's okay not to know. But what is not okay is that you're pretending to be knowing everything. Just invest in the community. If you do not know, go with the integrity and humility and tell them, can you please educate me? Because I want to get such and such outcome. I don't know you. That's fine. And the problem is that when people don't know, they still go and do it from their perspective. So I just want to add that little bit on top of what Daniel has mentioned.
Kiara. If I share one sentence here, is I would like, as a researcher, would suggest is spending time with your participants and knowing who they are. I mean, it's very hard to answer this question just in one way. It can be just, it depends on the situation. It depends on your participants. If they are youth, if they have good level of English, if they're brought up here, perhaps they will have a different sort of ideas, and the participation will be different. But if it's someone who born overseas, spend lots of time and coming here, English being difficult to communicate with them, English is a barrier for them, never participated in a research project, for them it's a total different area. So they're very beginners. So it just all depends who your participants are, and investing more time with them, I would suggest. There's another question. Let me find that. Okay. So one question is, another question. What does the right appropriate research process look like in a pragmatic terms? Are you suggesting or thinking something like a Pacifica Talanoa model? It's okay if you don't want to answer this question.
I'm happy to try it, Hafsa, if you're thinking.
Martin.
You go first, and then I will come in about the
Yeah.
indigenous models and framework, if we do have one.
Yeah. I first have to say that I don't know much about the Pacifica Talanoa model. I have an idea of what it is, but I don't want to speak too much on that. Good question, because pragmatically, I think what we're saying is that, so I was saying it's kind of nirvana, right? Pragmatically, it will be very hard to have meaningful partnership all over the time. And I think that's when I come back to that transparency. What is it that you want out of it? What is it that's in it for people? And I think I just want to keep repeating that, because I think we can't also set ourselves to fail by saying we're going to do all of these things, but actually there is a lot of restrictions. We all work for organizations that restrict you to do X, Y, Z, as Hafsa was saying, but it's actually being very clear about it pragmatically. I think, Arif, you talked about the IAP2 model. I think it's kind of similar to the maybe Pacifica Talanoa model, where you are, so there's a spectrum when you engage with people, when you actually bring people in, when you how you engage with people as well. So it's not when you bring them in, but it's how you engage with them, who you engage with. So I think there's quite a few frameworks out there. IAP2 model is one that is a new framework that I think is got a lot of good potential and good insights to use in this space pragmatically. But again, that overlaying that with just being transparent. when you go into the communities. I think just again respecting people's times, and saying, I would have loved to come into the research at this part of the spectrum, but I can't for these reasons. Maybe because time doesn't allow us to do that, money doesn't allow us to do that, XYZ. However, maybe we could do this now, and later we might come back in and do another part. So just having that communication, respecting people's time, thoughts, ideas, and again, giving them enough information for them to make an informed decision about whether they want to participate.
Thank you. Hafsa, you wanting to add anything?
I just want to add, as like Talano, Kakala is also a good model. But then what I found out is that many of our refugee communities, we don't have our own models. So then we then end up have to find out the one that could be the most relatable with the targeted communities that we are doing the research for. So if we do end up incorporating a framework, it's very important to think about the cultural component in it, in the framework that we utilize, because even if, like Martin said, even if we call about refugee, we say refugee communities are diverse in many ways. But I also found that sometimes we can still relate as human being under spirituality or religion or something. So it's also something to think about if we have a model that we could then make people feel relatable based on their spirituality, religious belief or something like that. So also thinking about the cultural component in it. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Arif, do you mind if I add something that I saw work
Sure, yeah,
quite
yeah,
well?
definitely.
Sorry.
Yeah. We have a couple of more minutes. Yep. Please
One thing
ahead,
I found pragmatically that I found as a good step forward was designing an engagement, a research. I keep talking about engagement because I was working in policy, but designing a research framework and then going to the communities and saying, like a small group of communities, and asking them, does this even make sense to you? What else can we do differently? Before you actually go out and engage wider, actually working with a group of people who are community leaders, and asking them, what can we change? We can throw this whole thing away and start again, and actually working alongside with them, but working with a group that's trusted by the communities. Because the other thing I think Daniel was talking about, or Hafsa, community leaders are not always community leaders, because they don't go back to communities to ask anything. So being very careful about who you're engaging. But right from the start, just checking in and going, does this model work? Is this going to work? Is this going to work? Okay, if it's not going to work, let's start again before you go wider. I think I saw that as a positive move, especially in government.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Anyone would like to share any final comments, last couple of minutes? I know that we will be living in Wellington. I want to make sure that I have given you enough time. So Hafsa, yeah, please.
Very quick.
Yep.
When we speak about power, we always think about the power that comes from external. We try to overlook the power that comes from within from the community. So please be mindful. Even if you're approaching the community leaders, they hold a level of power. And it is our responsibility to make sure that this community leader that we are approaching, I'm also speaking about myself, do not act as a gatekeeper and abuse that power they hold towards their own communities. I mean, we all have a good and the bad in every community, yeah? So it's also very important to be mindful of the power from outside and the power from within as well. I just want to add on to that.
Well, Hafsa, you always say whatever you say. I'd love to continue that for another half an hour or so. Sorry for this. Daniel, you have any last comments?
Just final thoughts. A lot that we talk was about engagement, and I feel that some researchers are really good at researching and writing, but not so good at engaging. And so I think I'll encourage you to understand engagement principles, how to engage with the communities, how to go and build those the trust with the communities, and really good models that we do use within the youth sector. And for the Youth Council is a strength-based approach, based on all the work we do is based on the strength of our participants, of our young people, and also a mana-enhancing model where young people feel that they have the mana to own whatever they do. So yeah, thank you so much for being here today. What awesome questions, and we'll work as well to answer some of them as well after this.
Okay, kia ora. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Martin, Hafsa, Daniel, and the rest of the team, and our sign language interpreter as well. Thank you so much. And for the participants, just to let you know that this session was recorded, and the recording will be shared with you, those who have registered, as well as the recording will be available on this community research website. And thank you to the community research team for organizing this. As from the communities, we love to have these corridors, and we would love these advocacy sessions where we can share our voices and we see real impact. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We're still here, and please talk to your critical friends in shaping Aotearoa to be a better nation for all of us.
Yep, they all have their LinkedIn profiles. Please reach out to them and then ask them questions and offer them a cup of coffee. Thank you.
Bye-bye.